Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Thanks But No One Asked You podcast where storytelling meets unsolicited advice. And today I have a guest. His name is Andrew Maraniss. Okay. And I'm going to let him introduce himself and all of his accolades later. You guys know how this goes. We jump right in. We don't have time. We gotta figure out who he is at his core through these rapid fire questions. Okay. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Britt. This is going to be a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
All right, here we go. First things first. You got to give your take on all these bowl game dropouts. Thoughts?
Man, I love bowl games. I'm the type that had like a family pool where,
Mm.
we all pick the winners of bowl games. In the past, my sister pays no attention to college football, usually would win the contest. Um, I feel like bowls have lost a little bit of their appeal now that everyone's focused on the college football playoff and there's more teams involved in the playoffs. But I liked what Clark Lee, the Vanderbilt coach, said. Like, you only have a few more weeks to spend with these guys that you've been with all year. They love playing football. Of course, they would play in the game. They're not going to drop out. So I'm in favor of teams continuing their season and playing in the games.
Yeah. People will make argument and say, well, I mean, these people get hurt and then they got to go pro. And, what do you say to that?
Yeah, I get that. I mean, that could be an individual player's decision, and you could argue either way. But as a team, I think they should participate.
All right. Hard stance. I like it. Okay. You mentioned family. So this is a great segue. Family holiday traditions, whether it's do you celebrate Christmas?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Got
Christmas
a
or New
15-year-old
Year's?
and a 12-year-old who both are still believers in the man in the red suit.
No
And
way.
yep, can you believe it?
How does that happen?
I guess they're very sheltered. I don't know. So we make cookies and set out cookies for Santa and carrots for the reindeer, and then uh, the reindeer eat most of the carrots, but there's usually a few little crumbs left outside on the front porch.
Okay. No, man, Andrew, I'm thinking that you want them to believe, and they're just like, okay, Dad, yes, there's no way they go to school and their friends are like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
They
cute.
might be continuing the charade and afraid they're not going to get any presents if they don't believe, but it seems like they still do. So I'm going to go with that.
I love it. Okay, cool. All right. Now, you are a critically acclaimed author. So I did my digging and I was like, oh my gosh, she's done so much writing. Best and worst book that you've ever read. Yeah.
Man, worst book I've ever read. Yeah, okay, so best book I ever read. Can I cheat and name a couple?
Yeah. And they had a long list. Here we go.
All right, so my favorite book when I was a little kid was Harold and the Purple Crayon.
It's a good one.
Um, and if you people could see, they can't see me, right? This is just audio.
Oh, no, they can see you.
They can see me? All right, so I grew up to look just like Harold. So I took quite a bit of inspiration from that book. If y'all can picture the cover of Harold and the Purple Crayon, and actually I'm wearing kind of a purple sweater too.
You
So
are.
yeah, I mean I grew into Harold. The first book that had a big impact on me in terms of the types of writing that I do now is called Son of the Morning Star. It was a book about the Battle of the Little Bighorn. I
Mm-hmm.
read it in high school, and it was an example of narrative nonfiction that some people would say reads like fiction. It was so detailed and so rich that it really sort of opened my eyes there. Dad's an author, so I would list almost all of his books as my favorite books. We're a Green Bay Packers fan, so he wrote a book about Vince Lombardi, a biography that was great. A big baseball fan, his biography of Roberto Clemente is one of my favorites.
Wow.
Democrat, so his biography of Barack Obama is one of my favorites. My favorite book that I wrote myself is Strong Inside, a biography of Perry Wallace. My least favorite book of all time was probably like a math textbook. I am not a math guy, so anything that had to do with math in high school is no
Off
doubt
limit.
my least favorite book.
Okay. That's a cheat. That's not really.
Yeah,
I.
I don't.
It's
Well, okay, so
probably.
here's the thing. As an author,
I'm sure there's an author's
I don't want to
creed.
slam another
Yeah,
person's book,
you can't
you
do
know?
it.
Uh-uh. I know how much work goes into it, typically. I mean, there's some celebrity books that the celebrity had nothing to do with, but uh, I think any book is a pretty big achievement, and to each their own, you know.
Yeah. Is there a book that you've never, well, let me forget which book you haven't finished. What are your beliefs on finishing books? Do you believe
Reading
that
them?
you have to finish them, or you're just like, listen, you ain't got to finish?
No, you don't have to finish them. I gave up a book on page one the other day, and it's a popular book. It was a Stephen King book. And but I don't really read fiction.
Uh,
I did love Stephen King's book. It was a time travel book on the JFK assassination. I
oh,
think it's 11/22/63 it was called, but picked up another of his the other day and just realized, no, I'm not going to get into this, and I set it down after a page. So no, I don't think anyone has an obligation to read an entire book.
okay. Do you ever feel like a little bit of guilt though for like 48 hours?
Sure. I feel a little bit of guilt, and I also have a big stack of books on the night table, or the nightstand next to my bed, like classic cliche of like
Yeah.
to
What?
be read books, and that makes me feel guilty every single day that pile gets a little bigger and bigger, and I still have so many to go, and then like adding books to the list. So yeah, major guilt, major
Yeah,
guilt.
it's the worst. I feel you on that one. There's a book, it's called The Love Songs of W.B. Du Bois, and it's
Okay,
nothing to do with W.B. Du Bois, but that's the name of the book, and it's actually it's fiction. Um,
okay,
but it's really thick, and it had great reviews, and I think it was an Oprah's book club book, and the back looks so fascinating, and I'm like, okay, this has to come down to a schedule. Like clearly I have a problem because I've only read 15 pages of this like 300-page book, and I feel really guilty. So it sits on, I intentionally every morning take it out of the chair and put it on a pillow. It's like this weird routine. I don't know. I
yeah.
need to like stop harassing myself. Uh,
Sounds like Elf on a Shelf. Since we're on the Christmas theme,
yeah,
you
it's
move
it's
it to the same pillow every day, and it's just watching you
I'm just
from the
like,
pillow.
hey, today you're gonna read it, and then whatever. I
Yeah.
don't know what I'm doing. All
I
right.
think you have permission to give it up and find another book
No,
that you
it's
like.
good. I just need to lock in. My brain is just going, going, going all the time. That's the problem.
I see. Well, yeah, you know what? My brain is too, and I've had a little bit of an issue with getting too attached to my phone or to social media on the phone. And but I have discovered that like getting into a book is a good antidote for that, and just long form reading as opposed to the rapid scroll, like it settles my brain down a lot.
Yeah. That part. And it's like great to do before going to bed because they say, you shouldn't be on your phone 30 minutes
Right.
before you go to bed. The same way you shouldn't eat before 30 minutes before you go to bed. So I'm working on it. We're working on
All
it.
right.
All
Okay.
right. Let's get into the actual interview question. So, first of all, Andrew, you're going to introduce yourself. Who is Andrew?
All right, so I'm Andrew Maraniss. I'm joining you from Nashville in my office at the Vanderbilt Athletic Department, where I'm yeah, there you go, anchor down, the special projects director here. I've been here for 8 years. This is my second time working here. So I went to school at Vandy, graduated in '92. Was a history major. Spent most of my time as sports editor of the school paper. My first job out of school, I was the sports information director for the men's basketball team here. Kind of stayed in that PR world for a while. I was the media relations manager for the Tampa Bay Rays their first season, and then at a Nashville PR firm for 17, 18 years. Came back here, like I mentioned 8 years ago. I also have a separate kind of life as an author of nonfiction, sports, and social justice books for adults, teens, and now children. And I also have a new fiction series out for little kids. I'm a dad. My wife Allison and I have a 15-year-old Eliza, freshman in high school, and sixth grade Charlie.
No.
So, and we have a dog, Kendall, who's everyone claims is my favorite person in the family, but that's up for debate.
Oh, very
Yeah.
cool. And you said a little authorship thing. No, 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 no. We're gonna dive right into it, guys. This man has written so many books, won awards. You're also a contributor to an ESPN series.
Hmm.
But let's back up. Your dad is also an acclaimed author. He won
Hmm.
a Pulitzer Prize for the coverage of the Bill Clinton election. What is it like? I mean, I love Pulitzer Prize authors. And I'm like fascinated by them. Such a
Yeah.
What was it like when he got the award? Is there an award? Is there money involved? How does that work?
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. So this would have been like in 1993.
Yeah.
It was soon after I graduated from college. He had at that point been a reporter and editor at the Washington Post since the mid 70s and always had covered presidential campaigns. And so, but not necessarily the type that is like writing the day-to-day stories, like what they call the horse race coverage of the campaign, but more like longer biographical pieces on like who is this person. And so he wrote a series of articles about Bill Clinton before he was elected president, and that's what won the Pulitzer.
Mm.
I mean, I wasn't living in the same city when he got it, so I don't know the whole like story of how he got the news or what along with it. But I know he got to go to the event at Columbia University in New York City. You get I think there is some money involved with it. I know he got a like a certificate and a little crystal award.
Hmm.
And if you know my dad, this is not surprising. At some point, he dropped it or it fell off a bookshelf or something, and so his Pulitzer Crystal Award has a little bit like missing from one of the corners, which
Oh
is
my
a pretty
God.
classic.
Classic
Yes,
fumble.
classic dad story.
Sheesh. Okay, so now we get to you, and now you're writing. Did you ever feel any like pressure to write or write as well as your dad?
That's a very good question. So I wouldn't say necessarily like grew up with pressure to write, but more of the modeling was there for sure.
Mm,
So um, my whole childhood, as I mentioned, he was at the Post. The people that would come to our house on the weekend or to a party, like my parents' friends, mostly were writers, and so I saw
mm,
that as an example of something that is a job, that's something people do. These are people that I admire, and that's what they do. My dad and I, our relationship is as much around sports though as anything,
yeah.
whether being fans of the Brewers and the Packers or I was always out playing catch with him in the backyard or at the park. So we go to games together. So sports and writing were always connected for me specifically. Um, I tried to start my own sports magazine when I was 13. Was always the sports editor of the paper in high school or college. Played
Yeah.
baseball also. So I wouldn't say I saw it as pressure, but just more as an example and maybe like a lack of creativity. Like, okay, that's kind of what people do, and so I'll try to do it too.
Yeah.
Um, and but I will say that I did feel some second part of your question is like ever to be as good. That part I do feel.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a bit of a losing proposition. And so I've decided not to worry about it.
Why is it
At
losing?
first I felt the pressure, like, okay, so people who read books, like they may know this last name. They're used to a certain standard, right?
Ah,
And so that's something that would be stark if you didn't live up to it.
yeah.
And so there was a bit of pressure there, especially with my first book, Strong Inside. But I spent 8 years working on it. My subject, Perry Wallace, was a brilliant man, and if all I did was listen to him and relay the stories that he told me, it would be a good book. And so I hope I was smart enough just to basically do that in addition to all other research I did for it. So um, yeah, there's definitely pressure to try to live up, and I don't think I ever will, and I've come to peace with that.
That's okay because now your kids are going to try to live up to you. It's how it goes. So let's talk
Yeah,
about Mr. Wallace. So there's a theme in your writing. Yes, it's sports, but you also wrote a book about Singled Out, the first openly gay MLB player. And Perry Wallace, that story, while it's about sports, it's really about race. And then there's another
right.
story about the Olympic team winning in Germany. There's a theme here.
It's,
It's like
yeah,
for me, it's like writing for the underdog, but more
yeah.
importantly, it's everyone that's the opposite of you. You're white, hetero, cisgender, male. Why are you writing about all these other people? It's
I
not an
mean,
attack. It's a question I have in my mind.
yeah. I mean, I think that's you mentioned like writing about the underdog. There's a lot that I could say about that answer. So, in terms of like why write a book, it needs to transcend sports, in my opinion. And I don't want to
Mm,
write just a book about a great game,
mhm.
or a player that only was good on the court, but nothing interesting about them off it. Um, so that's a piece of it. I think as a straight white middle-aged man, like you have a responsibility to go beyond that, and not only to learn about other people, but to advocate for other people.
Mhm.
Uh, and so that's a piece of it. These are lessons that I was taught from an early age by my grandparents and my parents about like fairness and racism and civil rights and just basic kindness to other people, empathy for other people. And I think that that is, when I'm writing for teenagers or elementary school kids, those are like especially important values to try to share. And I think that doing it through sports makes it very accessible for
Hmm.
kids. All these books share a theme of just access too. Like you're told in sports that it shouldn't matter what color you are or what religion you are, how much money you have, what gender, sexuality. Like sports is supposed to be a level playing field where your talent is all that matters. But we've seen throughout history that that's not true,
Right.
And every single one of my books is an example of that. Oh, you're black, you can't play SEC basketball. You're gay, you can't play Major League Baseball. You're a woman, you shouldn't even be trying to play sports in the first place. You're Jewish, we don't want you here in our country for the Olympics. So I think that in trying to get kids to really put themselves in other people's shoes or to see their own story reflected. Sometimes those can be tough conversations. Oh, you're a middle school kid here. You want to read about the gay rights movement of the 70s or homophobia? Like maybe some kids that wouldn't be the first book they pick up, but there's a Major
Right.
League Baseball player on the cover, maybe they will.
Okay. I
Um,
love that.
and so that is the piece of why I do it. But I just think these are important stories to tell. There's so much happening in the country that is the opposite and um, is trying to other other people, and to demean them, push them down, limit opportunities, which I see as you know um, indefensible. And so, like, what role do we all have on the opposite side of that? And some people use their voice. So, a lesson of the book on the Holocaust, Elie Wiesel, the Holocaust survivor, said that
Yeah.
you have to use your voice. Neutrality isn't good enough. It's not
Yeah.
good enough to say that I'm not the one out there, using slurs. I'm not the one out there committing violence against other people. Like I'm not doing anything, so I'm
Yeah.
fine. Well, he's saying, well, that's not good enough. You actually have to use your voice. And people do that in all sorts of ways, by voting, by running for office, by working for a nonprofit, by just the way they treat other people. For me, the way I try to use my voice is by telling these stories.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you said so many things, and my brain was like ting 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 ting. So I love what you said about just kind of making that topic accessible through sports, right? The topic of being othered.
Mhm.
And when I look at the books, I go back to myself being in school, and I am Black, obviously. And growing up, though, I had two Black parents who spent a lot of time. I will say a lot of time and a lot of energy educating me on what it means to be Black in this country, to the point where I was kind of resentful about it. I was just like, oh, enough, like I'm just
Mhm.
a kid. I didn't have those words, but I was just kind of annoyed. Like, why are we always talking about this?
Mhm.
Um, and then I went to an all white middle school. And I lived on the east side of Columbus, Ohio. It's a predominantly Black neighborhood. Parents are Black, their friends are Black. And I go to this school, and it was really there that I realized that I was Black. I didn't like, you don't know what you are until you become
Right.
othered.
Othered.
You just don't
Hmm.
know. And so I lived in this like bliss for a while until a girl named Carly, she came up to me and she said, it wasn't like her first time talking to me, but one of the first things I remember was she said, "Why is your nose so big?"
Mm.
And I was like, "Is it big?"
Hmm.
But I asked her conversely, and I wasn't being mean. I was like, your nostrils are actually pretty small. Like, can you breathe? And it was like a
Hmm.
real life middle school. Two girls like being weird. Mind you, I went home and like tried so hard to like make my
Oh,
nose smaller, and it was just like I thought about it for months. Her and I ended up being best friends because
really?
we loved Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, and
Yeah.
that was the thing that brought us together. And even still, we had both of our parents. I actually shared this story when I went to Owen in business school. Um, our parents are from their generation. So we would share what our parents were saying to us. And one night she came and stayed the night. I was never allowed to have people stay the night, but she was allowed. And her
Mhm.
dad said, well, be careful in Britt's neighborhood, bang, bang. And it's like, you don't even know where I live. And when she told me
Yeah.
that, I thought it was kind of like funny because I'd met her dad and I'm like, he's so weird, But
Mm.
my dad said about her, I was talking about her thumb. This thumb does this now because I bent it back. It used to just be like this, and I bent it back. Oops, sorry, my sound went
Yeah, I
out.
lost your audio for a second. What about
And
the thumb?
I'm bending my thumb back because that's what her thumb does. And my dad sees it. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, Carly's thumb does this. And he says, white people's thumbs who do that, they are direct descendants of the KKK. And I was like, okay, but her thumbs are pretty cool though, right? And it's like you get all of this messaging about
Yeah.
the differences to the point where you almost like block it out. And so I'm curious to know from your perspective, like you write these books, you're educating people. Today, some people would say you're dividing people. From my perspective, I'm just like, all information is good information. I just don't recognize that I'm Black until I'm othered. And I'm sure other people might feel the same. So my question is, of all the things that I just said, when did
Yeah.
you know that you were white and that was different than everyone else?
Oh, that's interesting. I would say probably in kindergarten or first grade. So, we moved from, I was born in Wisconsin. We moved around a lot when I was a kid. In the middle of first grade, we moved to Washington, D.C.
Mm.
And so I went to elementary school from first through fourth in DC, and I don't know. It seemed, and then even middle school in Silver Spring, Maryland, outside of DC. Most of my classmates were Black,
Yeah, you're in
and
DC when
so
it was actual Chocolate City.
yeah.
She said DC, and I was like, oh, blackety black DC.
And I didn't live like in Southeast or something, so I don't want to claim that. It was Northwest DC, which is
Yeah.
more white, but a lot of it was a public school, and so I had a lot of Black classmates in elementary school and middle school, and so um, I think that was probably the first time that I recognized that I was white. There was like it was fun that like it was as far as I remember. And I hate it when people say like we all got along, like and that they're glossing over something, you know. But Kent Cushionberry, I mean, I remember my friends, Freddie Stubblefield, like these guys were great. They taught me how to drum. Everybody was drumming on their desks in elementary school,
Oh
and
God, Black people love to make a beat on a desk.
yes.
And I love that you said it like they're all drumming on their desk. And I knew exactly, I was like, oh, Black people love to be like, hey man, yeah, everybody. Oh God, that's so funny. Yes, classic.
um, Yeah, and also, let's see, we had season tickets to Georgetown basketball at that period, men's basketball. So this was early '80s. John Thompson was the coach.
Yep.
Patrick Ewing, Reggie Williams, David Wingate, Horace Broadnax, Gene Smith. Like these were my favorite players, and I had a bit of a consciousness that this was unusual, that it was an all Black basically team at
Mm-hmm.
Georgetown, and that some people didn't like them
Mm.
because of that, but that was the team that I liked. And so I think I developed a bit of race consciousness then.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather, who's obviously white, served in World War II with an all Black unit in the
Mm.
Pacific. He was one
Wow.
of they had some white officers, but then it was all Black soldiers. And he came back from that experience really committed to civil rights. And so this was something that was talked about in our family a lot.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that. I wish, as a teacher, I had all my students were West African, Dominican, South American, Jamaican, or Black. Like I taught one white child the entire time that I taught across 4 years, and he was actually
Wow.
French. He wasn't even
Really?
like American. His
Okay.
parents were French.
Right. Uh-huh.
And I loved having him in class because it was like so innocent. Like they all see him as different, but he was so comfortable in his skin. If I turned on music, everybody would be all shy because Black people, Black kids, or Spanish kids, you got to make sure you're on beat.
Uh-huh.
You will get clowned if you can't dance. And this kid, he didn't care. He
Yeah.
offbeat, all crazy. But he was so himself, and they loved that about him. And I'm like,
That's cool.
that is where we need to be, like where
Yeah.
you're looking past race. Like we got to get past this already. I'm it's exhausting. I've been talking about it since I was a kid. My parents, reminding me that I'm Black. Like, I get it, Ma, I got it. But then you're reminded again when you're othered. It's very frustrating and exhausting. So I love that you are introducing this topic in a very, palpable way. Like, we can all relate to sports, and this just so
Hmm.
happened to happen in sports. But it would allow someone else who's not Black to pick the book up, or someone who's not
Right.
queer to pick the book up. Going down that
And
lane, you said something like, you said it was your obligation. And I talk about that often with my friends who are Black or female. And for a long time, even now, there's a lot of narrative around like the Black woman is in danger. There's just a lot of conversation around it. And the assumption then becomes that all Black women feel this way. I don't not agree with it. I find myself maybe more so in your shoes of like, I am a able-bodied, American. That has a lot of privilege to it.
hmm
And my thought process is like, yes, I could, fall on my sword of like, I'm a Black woman and these things are not right that come into me. But I've been unable to walk for 3 months. One time when I had surgery in college, like wasn't able to put weight bearing. And you learn very quickly if you were on crutches for 3 months or in a wheelchair for 3 months, how much this country is not set up for anybody with
hmm
different abilities. And
hmm
so for me, that becomes like my North Star, just to kind of like remove myself. So I love that you said it's like your obligation. And that's what I try to teach other students. It's like, yeah, you can find your camp of sorrow and pity, but like you got a lot going on compared to somebody else.
Right.
Period.
Yeah, I
Full
would
stop.
say when it comes to thinking of yourself as an individual, it's best to just put those barriers aside and reach for whatever greatness, matters to you. But then at the same time to recognize there are institutional or structural issues that need to change, so you could acknowledge both, and say like this is an individual challenge or problem for me to overcome, and no one's ever going to stop me regardless of what barriers are out there, but at the same time fight against the barriers that affect, so many people.
Mhm. Yeah, you're doing amazing work. Okay, so let's um talk to me about Wallace. You spent a lot
Yeah,
of
so
time with this guy, wrote a book about him. Talk to me about
Perry
him.
Wallace is an amazing person, an overlooked figure in the history of sports. So he was the first Black basketball player in the SEC. He played at Vanderbilt in the mid to late 60s. He was the first Black athlete in the conference in any sport that played a full college career.
Mm,
So I wrote about him for the first time when I was 19 years old, as a sophomore history major at Vanderbilt. I was taking a Black history class taught by Dr. Yolette Jones. We had an assignment to write a paper about a civil rights figure that was lesser known. I
mm,
had just read an article that talked about the first game that he played at Mississippi State in 1967, where he thought he might get shot and killed for stepping onto the basketball court. And so that reading that article was the first I'd ever heard of him. And here I am, a kid that's really interested in sports, history major, and so that was the subject I wanted to write about for Dr. Jones's class. But I was concerned that she would say, "Hey, this is college. We don't write about basketball in
mm,
college." But thankfully, she said, "If that's what you're interested in, that's what you should do." So at this time, Perry was a professor at the law school at the University of Baltimore. And I just called him out of the blue from my dorm. He was extremely gracious to spend a couple hours with me on the phone. I did uh, some research at the library, reading old articles about the games his during his time at Vandy, and wrote a paper about him. And in writing that paper, it was by far the most interesting thing I did in college. As the sports editor of the school paper, I started writing some columns trying to introduce this figure to a new generation of students and arguing that there should be a building named after him on campus. And then, I graduated, kind of moved on with my life, but his story stayed on my mind. And so finally, 17 years later, I guess every author is a first-time author at some point. It kind of dawned on me like I could be the one that writes a book about Perry Wallace.
mm,
And so I
mhm,
emailed him and just mentioned that this was something I was interested in and kind of like, how did he feel about that? you don't have to ask your subjects permission. Anybody could write a book about whoever they want to, but I wanted to make sure that he was willing to do more interviews and share, letters or photos, introduce me to his family. And he said, go for it. I had no idea how long it would take to write a book. I ended up spending 4 years before I ever wrote a single word, just on research, traveling, interviewing people. Another 4 years writing it. I didn't have an agent or a publisher. I sort of went about it backwards. But his story, really, like you mentioned at the beginning, is not so much, it is a basketball story, but really it's about what it was like for him growing up in this segregated city in the 1950s and 60s, sort of at this generation where things began to change a little bit. He
Mhm.
was in high school. He started high school a week after MLK's I Have a Dream speech. He's in high school for the passage of the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. And he said that he could sense that things were going to change. He watched the lunch counter sit ins when he was 12 years old. And so he said he wanted to be prepared for this new world that was coming, or he hoped was coming. And he was prepared as a basketball player. He was team captain on a great team, but he was also the valedictorian of his high school, and a really well rounded person. And wanted to use basketball as a way to get out of the South. He
Mhm.
didn't want to stay in his hometown, but he saw kind of the ugly side of college sports and the exploitation of athletes. When he went to visit different schools, they would, offer him things that are legal now, right? But were against the rules then. So cash or cars but more significant to him, he was told, if you come to our school, you don't have to go to class, or we'll just find the easiest
In the
classes for
60s
you.
they were
Yeah, so
doing.
that might have worked with some kids, but it really turned Perry off. And so he was a math and science guy. He
He's
was
a
an engineer,
learner.
but I also think he was a poet. And he said that he wasn't going to trade one plantation for another and
Ooh.
go to one of these schools where he would be valued only as a 6'5" guy that could dunk. So
Wow.
he crossed them off his list. He ends up coming to Vanderbilt despite the fact he'd be a pioneer. And so a big focus of the book is the toll of pioneering. And, we often celebrate pioneers or have their jerseys retired or a day in their honor, as if it was only a success story. But it was anything but that for Perry. He felt very lonely. He did fear for his life on the road, but really the way he was treated on his own campus was more was harder for him in the sense of being cheered for on the court and ignored off it.
Mm.
And so it was an extremely difficult experience for him, and he was just as proud that he survived that and was able to go to law school at Ivy League Law School at Columbia to become a professor, become an attorney for the Justice Department, and really make so much of his life, even with so many people hoping that he would fail, or actively harassing him or ignoring him. Both sides of the racism that he encountered was the vicious, in your face racism that we often think about, like that was in Mississippi or Alabama, but the other side of feeling like he was invisible on his own campus.
Dang. Yeah. People talk about a loneliness epidemic. I'm like, that's on another level. To just not even really
Hmm.
be. I think that also what you said about like pioneering. Like I think everybody kind of says that. Yes, they were the first, but there's just so much pressure on you now.
Hmm.
But it sounds like he signed up for that, which is incredible. I'm not going to say I would sign up. I always think about that. Like, oh man, me and my friends talk about it. Like, if I was in
Hmm.
the 60s, I would have done this. And I'm like, no, if I was in the 60s, I'd be at home. And they're like, no, Britt, you'd be out running your mouth. I'm like, no, I am fearful of some things. And
Hmm.
being attacked is one of those things. And I don't know if I would have been that brave. I don't think I would have, to say that you went on a court with the potential or fear of being shot and killed. I don't love sports that much.
Yeah. Uh, he had tremendous courage. There's a double meaning to the title, Strong Inside. He was incredibly strong inside to do what he did. He was also a strong inside player as a center on the court. But then he also took it from both sides. So uh, he had black classmates that thought he was Uncle Tom or a sellout
You
for
can't win.
going to going to a white school like Vanderbilt. And so when he'd go back home to his old school or to his neighborhood, looking for support during the hardest times, often, It wasn't support that he was getting when he would go back there, which is not to say it was equal treatment. I mean, the racism was far worse, but he didn't necessarily get applauded for his decision, even amongst some of his best friends in the neighborhood.
It's isolating, and I wonder what his thinking was of like, to what end? Like, what is the goal here?
Yeah.
Did he
Well,
think
he
about
was,
that?
yeah, he was of a generation, that really strongly believed in integration, and this was still kind of an experiment at the time. But he thought that the best version of American society was not a segregated society, and so that he could play a role in that. Um, he said it was really after his first year that he understood the responsibility he had. So he thought about quitting his first year,
Yeah.
transferring. It would have been a lot easier to transfer to Purdue, I think is where he would have gone, which also had a great engineering school, and he could play in the Big Ten that had been desegregated for 20 years already. But he knew that first of all, he didn't want to satisfy the haters, and give up and quit and leave. But he also knew there was a lot of people that were counting on him, to succeed and to change things, and he felt that responsibility. And then in the end, he said that his experience was worth it if it helped to, well, three things, I guess, like to educate people. He was a teacher at heart, and so if people could learn and benefit from his experience, that was good. Um, he wanted to change the institution also. So even though that things weren't easy for him at Vanderbilt, he still uh, it was still his. It was where he chose to go to college, and he understood he could make the place better. And it took a long time. I mean, he gave an interview to the local paper the day after his last game where he talked mainly about the loneliness that he felt on campus. People expected him to talk about the success, of being a pioneer or the difficulties in playing road games around the SEC. And they were upset here in Nashville when he talked about, well, it wasn't that easy on campus. It was a
Hmm.
lonely 4 years.
Nobody wants to
And
hear
he was,
that. Like, we
no,
couldn't have been
they
the
didn't want to hear it at
problem.
all. They ran him off campus, basically. He wasn't really welcome back for
Gee.
decades, but he continued to tell the same truth, for years and years and years. And finally, people here changed, attitudes changed to some degree. And so the same stories were then welcomed, and you had black athletes here generations later that were learning about this pioneer that thanked him, administrators that named streets and dorms after him on campus, and so in a lot of substantive and symbolic ways, he finally got the love and the understanding that he had deserved all along, to the point that when he was passing away, the current AD at that time, David Williams, his assistant Candace Lee, who's now our athletic director, and we all went up to the DC area to see Perry when he was in hospice about to pass away. And he asked that his memorial service, he asked us to plan it and to have it on the Vanderbilt campus.
Oh,
And that to me really was poignant and showed that the change he had tried to make like did happen, and that
yeah.
this place that had been the source of a lot of pain was where he wanted to be remembered and to have this final sort of act of his life take place there. So it was pretty special.
Yeah. And it's nice that he kind of got that full circle, because I always talk about this with my friends too, like, and my students. I would talk to my students about this. Like, when we share an icon or their story, for every one person whose story we can share and say the loop closed, there's probably hundreds who went through whatever they went through and never got the satisfaction or the gratification or the applause or anything. And to that effect, it's like, these got to be the most brave people,
Hmm.
because you're not being validated in what you're doing. And I'm sure they sit home at night and question, like, why am I doing this? Like,
Yeah.
am I actually in the wrong here? And I think that, anybody who's a whistleblower, anyone who speaks up, who advocates for someone else, is risking isolation, like this guy experienced. They're risking
Hmm.
their reputation being tarnished, and just the internal battle of, like, am I crazy? Um,
No, absolutely. There's a quote. Well, that's funny that you said, "Am I crazy?" Because when I wrote the paper about Perry in college, the title of it was "When You See a Purple Man," and it's like bizarre. Like, what? Why is this a paper about a basketball player called "When You See a Purple Man"? But Perry was describing the sensation of being on the Vanderbilt campus in the 60s, seeing racism all around him, and none of his white teammates or classmates acknowledging it. And he said it was if you would be walking down the sidewalk and this purple man walks by you, and you're like, what's going on here? And nobody else acknowledges it. That's the analogy
Mm.
that he raised. But then also the idea of the courage it takes to be in the right, to put yourself in these situations without any guarantee that anyone will ever acknowledge it, right? And so the opening quote that I have in the book on Perry is from MLK's letter from a Birmingham jail, and it says, "One day the South will recognize its real heroes. They will be the James Merediths with the noble sense of purpose that enables them to face jeering and hostile mobs, and with the agonizing loneliness that characterizes the life of the pioneer."
Mm.
And so to me, that really encapsulated Perry's life and this long wait to recognize the real hero.
Yeah. So now we're gonna dive a little bit deeper when it comes to like the am I crazy? I remember having this thought when the election was happening this past year, and it's this conversation is not about who you voted for. I could care less. It's a democracy. We are one country who deals with their own stuff. But I decided on election night that yes, I'm going to watch the channels that I always watch, ABC, NBC, or whatever. And then I was like, you know what? I want to also turn on Fox News. And I would flip between the two channels during the entire election. I mean, night and day reporting.
Mm-hmm.
Very somber on the NBC, ABC front. I mean, I tell people like they were zooming in on counties trying to capture any little blue dot. It was like desperation central. Fox News, it was a party. They had a man reporting out of a bar on Broadway in Nashville.
Okay.
Like they had, and it was just kind of like, and then when the map was revealed and it was primarily red, I was kind of like, this is fascinating. Just from it's just fascinating to me. Take race out of the equation. I feel very strongly about what I feel is right. I feel very strongly about it, right? I believe we should be inclusive. There's not a group of people that I can say I don't like, except for people who don't like other people. I can't think of a group that I don't like. There's not a group of people I'm like, they can't be around me. Nobody.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have this other group of people who also fully believe that they are right. And to the effect where it's that many people where I go, am I wrong? I'm like, dang, I haven't really ever considered that like I'm wrong. And there's like this tension that's happening where people on the right are kind of acting like they're civil rights leaders, like they are protecting something. And I'm like, you really believe this? This is so crazy to me that we can believe two very different things and they are defending it with the same energy that I'm defending my side. All that to say, I don't know if I even have a question, but it's mind blowing to think that
Mm-hmm.
like what is right is not universal in any way,
Yeah.
shape, or form. And so there are people today that I'm sure would say he shouldn't have had his, funeral service there. I mean, I don't know. I'm fascinated by the fact that like everyone believes they're right. And I have a hard time explaining why I am right when this many
Yeah, I
people
think
feel a certain way.
in the context of Perry's story, for certain, like when he was the target at so many of these hostile venues when he's playing, those people in the crowd thought they were right, and they thought they were the winners, and that he was the loser in life. He was surrounded by classmates that felt the same thing, and he talked about like what an opportunity those people missed to learn the other story, the other side of the story about race, and that kind of like you talking about your friend who said some things that were that you could characterize as racist, but maybe was an innocent mistake in middle school. I don't know, but at least you guys like were talking and got to know each other to the point you said you became best friends. So Perry would say, yeah, there might have been cases in the mid 60s where black and white students were coming together for the first time on this campus, and the interactions might not have always gone smoothly. But this school was a time to learn and to make mistakes, but
Yeah.
then to continue to engage with each other and to learn from each other. And it would only be helpful to have those interactions later in life when you're in a multicultural society. And been those that felt they were, that things would always remain the same. This was with their grandfather's world and their father's world, and they didn't have to take the time to get to try to know other people, that those were in fact the losers, that they
Yeah.
were so certain that they were right at the time, but they missed out on a real opportunity. And so it's probably in a way it was good that you forced yourself to watch all the different channels and see different
Yeah.
perspectives, because you have to live in a world where there are all sorts of different perspectives. It does cause you to re-examine what you think is right. But, I do think there are, yeah, I don't know if I'm smart enough to have this conversation, but like, what are the universal truths? Or
Yeah.
what do we know about human nature that we can say like is right or wrong? What in politics is right or wrong? The way that the some media, like, is it actually true? Is truth valued in this society? So, like I wrote a book about the 1936 Olympics and the first U.S. men's Olympic basketball team that played there. And there was an article that I quote in the book about Joseph Goebbels, who was the propaganda minister for Adolf Hitler, and it was a positive article about him in the New York Times just before the Olympics.
Mm.
And he basically said in this story that the truth didn't matter in his society. That, propaganda was not measured on the whether it was true or not. It was measured on, did it cause people to do what you wanted them to do? And
Mm.
if so, then it was good. If not, it was bad. And the truth and style and like politeness had nothing to do with it. And so if you find yourself in a society where the truth doesn't matter, then I think we can agree that's a dangerous situation to be in.
Yeah. It's crazy. So now I have a double-barreled question, which you're not supposed to do, I'm sure, as you already know. But I'm doing it anyway. Two questions. One is, what do you do to immerse yourself in the other side of right or wrong? Whether you said you're a Democrat, what do you do to um, engage with the other side? And then two, what are some things you do with your kids to make sure that they are somewhat well-rounded? I mean, are there strategies? You just hoping for the best?
Yeah, I mean, I guess fortunately, working at a university campus that has made a point of saying that you know all perspectives are welcome and deserve an opportunity to be heard is helpful. You're surrounded by all sorts of people working in athletics. I think that's one great thing about sports, is that it does bring a wide variety of people together. So that exposes you to different views. Living in Nashville, which is largely a blue dot in a red sea around you. I mean, I'm just not around a lot of different political voices
That's Atlanta.
every day. Yeah,
Blue dot in a
yeah,
red state.
exactly. And to say I'm a Democrat, but like labels of or parties change. You know, the Democratic Party in the South in the 40s, 50s, and early 60s was very different than it
It was
is now. So I
opposite.
might not
Yeah, it
always be
flip-flopped.
a Democrat. We'll see how things change. But it's more just on the kids side. I think it's important to my wife and I that they read a lot, and so they're at the library reading books about all sorts of different characters. They stay up on the news. They subscribe to The Week Junior, which is a great news magazine written for kids. We don't really shy away from any topics, thinking, oh, like they're too young to learn about racism or homophobia or sexism. Like, that's not the case. And so there's age appropriate ways to talk about all those sorts of issues. So I think that's the important thing, as like you kind of alluded to earlier, as a white family, to make sure that your kids aren't in too big of a bubble, you
Yeah.
know, and uh, and so like they've got to see all sides of town. They've got to meet all kinds of people. They've got to read about all kinds of people, and not use their privilege has to be acknowledged, and just be aware of that at the earliest age possible.
Yeah. Very cool. Okay. We have to get into thank you for that conversation. I have not talked about that in a long time.
Yeah, sure.
Let's talk about it's time to get into the game, this or that. And this
Okay.
is where you are going to choose two different audiences between the two. So I could say cat owners or dog owners. Okay.
Dog owners. Yeah.
You're going to pick one and you're going to give them unsolicited advice for 20, 30 seconds. It won't be
Oh, give them advice. Okay. All
yeah,
right.
you're giving advice. So you're going to pick an audience and tell me who you want to give advice to, and then you're going to do that. Okay, 10-year-olds or 20-year-olds? I would say you write
10
for
year
both.
olds, 10-year-olds need to kind of
Now you have to pick one. Is
start
this the one you want to talk to, the
10-year-olds.
10-year-olds or the
10-year-olds.
20-year-olds?
I'm going to talk to 10-year-olds.
All right, cool.
Okay. 10-year-olds, when the name LeBron James is mentioned, do not immediately say, LeBron James. Have you experienced that in a room of 10-year-olds?
No, I haven't been around 10-year-olds in a
They
minute.
say his name in kind of a funny way, like reflexively. It's the same thing with 6'7".
God.
So at some point, this has to die, and I think we're getting close to the point where even 10-year-olds might be getting a little bit sick of it. And so I think that they should just let's just get there to the point where it's old news. No more 6'7".
Oh my God, that's so funny. You definitely have kids because I'm like, LeBron James, what does this mean?
Yeah.
But there was definitely something that you had when you were a kid that was so obnoxious. What was it? And it drove adults crazy. This is why I tell people, like, let it go because we all had
We
something.
all had it.
What did
Yeah.
you have? What was your obnoxious joke from the kids?
Oh my God. I don't know. I think I was a little bit older, but you remember like the Budweiser commercials
Bud,
with
why,
why with the frogs?
zer.
Yes, but then also the What's Up commercials, where they all called each other. Yeah. Yeah. Both of those.
Okay, so you did it. So you were
Yeah.
obnoxious at one point.
But
Okay,
not
let
okay.
the kids have their fun.
Oh man. All right. Maybe I'm just tired of my own.
It is obnoxious. I'm grateful to like hear about it in passing. All my friends with
Mm.
kids, they're like, they're doing the 6'7" thing. It's so dumb. It's to the point where they're pissed. And I'm like, who cares? And they're like, I
Yeah.
live with it. It's annoying.
That's right. Brett, you'd have different thoughts on this if you had a 12-year-old.
All right, cool. Athletic directors or student athletes, who would you like to give unsolicited advice to?
Oh my God. All right. I'll go student athletes.
Okay.
My unsolicited advice to them, and I've heard, okay, it has to be unsolicited. So, uh, try to break out as many bubbles as possible. So,
Ooh.
um, even like I want to say, like, get to know fellow students that aren't athletes, right? But also get to know athletes that aren't on your team. And so if you go to the dining hall, all the teams sit together, they all travel together. Like your college experience will be so much more enriched the broader you can sort of make your horizons. And it's not always easy. Like there's a lot of time spent practicing, traveling in games with your teammates, and it's valuable to have tight relationships with them. But I think as the years go on, it's only to your benefit to have contacts and friends that have had a different experience. And even when you're in school, make the most of it. Like you only have 4 or 5, maybe 6 years on this campus or any campus. And the more you can branch out from what's immediately around you on your team, the better.
That's awesome advice.
Britt, you're nodding your head. Do you agree? Did you have a hard time with that though? To
No,
know?
I'm a genuinely curious person. It didn't occur to me that other people weren't doing that until I graduated.
Okay.
Like people always ask me, what was your favorite, Duke or UConn? I'm like, two different schools, two different experiences. Duke is 5,000 people. It's a very small school, and so I had more non-athlete friends at Duke than I did at UConn because it's such an intimate space. And I loved the students at Duke because that was the first time I was around young people who were intentional about their education. Like these kids who
Hmm.
were at Duke had wanted to be at Duke since they were like 10, 9,
Okay.
8, like
Hmm.
they had a path in their mind. They were very diligent, and I was very diligent in my sport. So it was amazing to be around people who were diligent about their future in that way. UConn, I cannot say I make a joke and people don't like it, but it is what it is. I'm like, UConn was like the 13th grade of Connecticut. Like, it's the state school. Everybody wants to go to it, but it's not elite. It's not super special. Maybe in Connecticut, they think it's super special, but like in the grand scheme of things, to go to Duke, to get in, to achieve that is a huge marker for them. And they had probably been working on it for years. So
Okay.
I had friends who were not athletes. At UConn, my teammates were like, yeah, we were a little cultish. However, I had friends on all the other teams. We went to hockey
Okay.
games, we went to soccer games, we went to the volleyball games. And those people are now, as I tell ADs when I go to schools, they want me to come in and talk to the revenue generating sports. And I have to say, no. Like, yes,
Hmm.
and you
Yes,
have to
and
give
yeah.
me lacrosse. You have to give me tennis, because those are the kids that are going to be in the C-suite. Y'all can keep
Hmm.
pushing down the rhetoric to the revenue generating sports, but you're missing, like, it starts at the top. The schools aren't even giving them the energy that they should. Those are the kids that end up with the established network. So
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think I love that. I love your advice because I say it all the time. And yes, things are busy, but that's not an excuse. I think there is an air of this for a lot of revenue generating athletes, not all, but a lot of like, why would I go to a lacrosse game? Why would I talk to lacrosse
Hmm.
players? They're, groupies or whatever. It's so juvenile. Unfortunately, college athletics can sometimes feel like high school squared
Hmm.
until you become an adult and you graduate and you're like, uh-oh, and you see them
Yep.
online. So that's the best advice. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for saying that.
Hmm.
Okay, last one. Um, this one feels corny now that I'm saying it. It feels completely irrelevant, but I got to go with it. Authors
All
or
right.
publishers?
Authors or publishers. All right. I'm gonna get in trouble. Okay, publishers. Ah, gosh, my publishers are great. Uh, but I think every author I've ever talked to wished that there was just a little bit more attention on them. You know,
Mhm.
um, it's hard to sell books, and there are so many books being published every year. So few people working on the marketing and promotion side that I think authors often feel slighted there, or that not enough, they're not getting enough attention. So maybe this is advice for both. Authors need to get over that and just recognize that they're going to have to do a lot of the work themselves. Publishers, I wish, put a little bit more time into their whole list and not just the top of the list. You can kind of understand how they do it from a business perspective, but it's frustrating for authors. For authors, I'm going to give advice to both. So I think authors need to get over themselves a little bit. And I've started to learn this over my 10, 12 years of being an author. There's a preciousness that comes with it for some authors that really puts me off. And it's not a superpower. It's a trade or a
Mm.
skill. And I don't know, just the entitlement that some authors operate with is a turnoff.
Okay. Uh-oh, you've had some experiences. We won't ask you about them. Well, this has been awesome. We covered so much. So thank you for being candid. Thank you for all the work that you do. Where can people find your newsletter, your work, follow you?
Yeah, they can find me on my website is andrewmaraniss.com. It's as easy as that. And all of my books are there. I'm trying to wean myself from social media, which is not necessarily advice you would give to an author. But again, I think it's not healthy to be too absorbed in it. So I got rid of my Twitter. I'm trying not to get on Facebook and Instagram as much as possible, which again, like that's not advice you give to an author when you're trying to sell books, but
Yeah.
it's good advice for me. But all my stuff's on andrewmaraniss.com. And I hope that if anyone was interested in learning about these books, that they'll check them out. And there's some we didn't discuss there for younger kids, even first, second, third graders. They're trying to share these same messages about inclusiveness and helping other people. And I don't think kids are ever too young to get those messages.
Yes, that's amazing. Also, guys, he's on LinkedIn, which is
Yes.
where I connected with him. So, shout out to you in the purge for social media. I'm on the same train. 2026 has to look very different. What a waste of time.
Yes.
This time is not on our side. But thank you so much for being on the show today. I appreciate it. And for those of you Please tune in because in 2026, we are bringing on all young adults 14 through 24. So I hope to see you all next year.
Oh,
Thanks.
that's awesome, Britt. Yeah, that's cool. I'm glad I got in 2025 because I definitely don't think about coming
It was on
back.
the edge. Thank
Much as
y'all.
I'd like to.
All right. Peace.
All right.